Social media really takes away the nuts and bolts of human communication. It provides only the surface manifestation. So it masquerades as communication. So there's a lot of disconnect in this society. People literally don't know their neighbors. Neighborhoods are no longer neighborhoods. They're isolated domiciles for the most part, which means there's a deep hunger for connection, and the social media provides a simulacrum of connection, the pretense of connection. If you're using something for temporary relief or pain relief or pleasure, and you crave it, despite negative consequences, you go on addiction. There was an American psychologist who had that human beings are all creatures with special needs. And I think one of our special needs is for meaning. Our lives are not meant to be just lived for the daily sake of physical existence. Now, that meaning in a tribal setting is automatically provided for you, because you're bigger than yourself. You belong to something greater than yourself. And when you're connected with nature, you're connected with spiritual practice or belief, you have some meaning that transcends your daily struggles for survival. Now, this society has pretty much reduced that. Like we talk about meaning a lot, and we talk about broad values such as freedom and democracy and so on, but that's not what people experience in their daily lives. Nobody experiences democracy in their daily lives. Most of the people work in institutions where they're told what to do, and they have no voice on the matter whatsoever. And the freedom is very often reduced to making choices with meaningless alternatives. So there's a deep, and there's more and more disconnection, we've already mentioned. So there's a deep lack of meaning. The addictions can certainly come along and provide a false, temporary, but momentarily satisfactory sense of meaning. And meaning is important to all of us. We all want to feel there's something more significant about our lives than simply the fact that we have dinner in the evening and we defecate in the morning. Well, first of all, what's the case in this society is that people are less and less connected. Human beings were not meant to live in these, from the evolutionary point of view, we're not designed to live in these complex, vast aggregations. We're meant to live in small hunter-gatherer bands where everybody knows everybody else, and there's deep connections between people. And that's how we've lived, for the most part, for millions of years, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of years of evolution, until really quite recent. So there's a lot of disconnect in this society. People literally don't know their neighbors. Neighborhoods are no longer neighborhoods. They're isolated domiciles for the most part, which means there's a deep hunger for connection, and the social media provides a simulacrum of connection, the pretense of connection. And so what do people have on social media? They have friends. They like each other. These are attachment dynamics. These are connection dynamics. But the friends aren't real friends, because real friends know you. And you're not afraid to show them who you are. In social media, people have concocted an artificially adorned persona. And it's these artificial entities that then people like. So the individual never gets the sense of being really liked, because they know that it's just an image that. And the so-called friends are not there for you when you need them. Liking and friends are very strong language, but social media is a pale copy of it. So the less it meets your real needs, the more addictive it is, because the more and more of it you need to get. I'm not sure that it's caused, but it certainly revealed the many subcultures in this society, and allows people who belong to various ideological groupings to identify one another and to band together and to have sort of a pseudo camaraderie. So we can all hate the same thing. We can all be hostile to the same people. And anybody can express an opinion. In the old days, letters to the newspapers, people had to be pretty responsible for what they wrote. They had to identify themselves. Social media You can say anything you want about anybody. Doesn't matter hurtful or wrong or hateful, really, and not even identify it. So it allows people who otherwise are on the margins of society to aggregate in these pseudo groups that then promote one another's most negative tendencies. And there's no guidance there. There's no leadership. There's nobody to call you to your senses. There's nobody to say, really, do you really mean that? Is that what you really intend? What's really going on? So there's peer groupings without any kind of guidance. It's really like a teenage gang phenomenon where people band together, mostly for negative reasons. They're lacking contact, so they need to band together, so that's legitimate. But they band together without mentorship, without tradition, without adult guidance. And so you see what we see. Well, you see, as you and I are speaking to each other, Ali, we're tracking each other's face. And our ear muscles are actually adjusting themselves automatically to hear not just what's being said, but also the tone of voice that is being said. And you will nod when I say something, or I might nod or smile when you say something. So communication is as much about these nonverbal cues, which are mediated through our nervous system, as it is about the verbal content. Now, none of that exists on social media. It's not genuine communication. Human communication is almost meant to be face-to-face. And even if I were to write a letter to somebody that I was going to mail, that's a much more conscious and deliberate process than dashing something off on social media and pushing the send button in a state of tizzy, so that it's much less impulsive. So social media really takes away the nuts and bolts of human communication. It provides only the surface manifestation of it. So what masquerades as communication is really diatribes very often. And I know what it's like because I get an email and which might trigger me. And then right away I want to write it out and then push the send button. And boy, have I had to learn not to do that. Because there's no reflection there. It's just whatever emotion arises, you express it and then you communicate it right away without any reflection. In my book, what the addicts lack very often is emotional self-regulation. The parts of the brain that regulate our emotions, including the orbitofrontal cortex, just don't develop in addicted people because the conditions for development aren't adequate. So the brain does develop in interaction with the environment. So now you have a lot of people with brains that are not fully developed. They might be intellectually developed, but the emotional circuits aren't. So now you have a lot of people with emotional underdevelopment communicating impulsively on social media. And that's what we're saying. And so people will say horrible things on social media that they might never even say in real person.
Let's pause here for a moment, because what Dr. Gabor Maté is saying is something we all feel, but rarely name. Social media makes it easy to seem connected, but so many of us still feel deeply alone. We post smiles, share opinions, but rarely show who we really are. And that disconnection, it feeds our trauma. As Dr. Gabor Maté says, this culture teaches us to hide our pain, to fit in instead of be seen. But healing means unlearning that. It means realizing that your true self is not too much. It's just been waiting for a safe place to be known. Keep watching, because this truth matters.
What is that someone in this life comes in with this ability to connect and come out of your own experience and body into another space, another energy? What is that?
Well, it's a mystery, isn't it? You see it a lot. Actually, you see it in artists and performers.
Yeah. Something
comes through them that they can't manifest. Something even joyful and creative and very positive that in their whole lives they can't manifest at all. Mm-hmm. But when they're performing, it just happens. I think that has to do with how some people are born very sensitive and they just connect more naturally with something outside themselves. I also think it comes through a certain degree of suffering that maybe you work through, you know. And also I think, this is getting maybe more mystical than I usually would venture into, but there is a truth, there's a larger unity, that there's a oneness that whether we know it or whether we don't know it, but we all belong to, and that can manifest itself through us, even if our conscious mind and even our personalities can't quite get a hold of it. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I would agree. Is there anything that you do that gets you into that space more or allows for more of that to come through? A situation you put yourself in or a practice that you have?
I'm not disciplined enough to have a regular practice. I mean, I really do have an ADD brain, and it's a challenge for me to meditate or to do yoga regularly. For example, I mean, I do, but I don't keep it up as much as I know would be good for me. For me, that has come through psychedelic work, actually, which is not the same. I mean, as just coming to it more spontaneously, but that has put me in those spaces sometimes, and that's been helpful for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I definitely want to ask you about that. I've done it myself a few different times. Ayahuasca, psilocybin, MDMA, varying degrees of healing tools. Man, is this the future of therapy? Is this the future of psychology and growth and meeting ourselves? I think that a loss of self is something you've said is a problem in society, and what keeps us disconnected from ourselves, that loss of self through the environment that we're in these days. So psychedelics essentially bring you back to that and go beyond it into spaces, my experience, that you didn't know were there. Aspects of yourself, truths that you wouldn't have always otherwise known. So it seems like this could be a big healing tool moving forward.
Yes. So in this book, The Myth of Normal, I do have one chapter on psychedelics, which is probably appropriate. So out of 33 chapters, one is on psychedelics, because I don't want to put my eggs all into the psychedelic basket. Right. So, like on the one hand, it can be very powerful. And the first time I did ayahuasca, maybe 12, 13 years ago, I just experienced this pure love that I'd never accessed before. I literally had tears of love rolling down my cheeks, and I thought I had arrived somewhere. Well, as my family could tell you, 2 days later, I had glimpsed something, but I hadn't arrived anywhere. So, and I've led retreats, and I've helped people with psychedelics, and I've done, myself. I think they're a great potential. I don't think they are the answer. I don't think they are the future. I think the future has to be far more with the transformation of people and of social structures and the culture itself. We can't rely on one particular modality. What the psychedelics do is they show you great potential. And what shows up, as you say, is things you weren't aware of. It's almost like there's a membrane between our conscious minds and all the stuff we carry in our subconscious. And the psychedelics remove the membrane. It's almost like you can have a waking dream and experience all the rage, all the hatred, maybe, all the terror, all the fear, but all the beauty, all the love, all the oneness, all the unity, all the joy, all the presence that is in us. But be awake for the experience and be able to get in relationship to it. Psychedelics, I think, as you also suggest, can put in touch with that unity that we're all a part of, but we're hardly aware of it most of the time. In fact, in this culture, which is all about competition and aggression, greed and acquisition, we are almost societally propagandized into forgetting that unity and that oneness and that interconnection. And psychedelics can open that up beautifully. But then there's the rest of life, and what you glimpse and experience in the psychedelic space. The question is how to make those same values, which people can attain without psychedelics, how to make those values work in our regular lives, in our social lives, in our culture. And that's a question that goes way beyond psychedelics, I think.
Sure, that's culture and society and the pattern they keep us in outside of ourselves that pull us back in so quickly. What do you think holds us back the most when we come out of that? Like we get into these spaces, we feel love, and then we get back into our routine. Like if there were a few things to change, what would it be? Like when you came back, what did you think? This is what society pulls me back into the heart with the hardest.
I think there's two forces pulling us back into our ordinary, less unitarian, less connected self. One is just how our personalities are formed in the first place, which is very often, in my contention, the result of responses to traumatic events or traumatic pressures that happen to children in this society quite a lot. And so we form these defensive structures that we call the personality. And the personality doesn't want to give up too easily, because when stuff happens in childhood that makes you defensive, it makes you afraid, or makes you disconnected, those structures have been living in you and dominating your life, depending on how old you are, for decades. They don't just disappear, they don't just dissolve. You might get a momentary respite from them in the psychedelic space, but they haven't all of a sudden evaporated. And the Buddha talked about what he called our habit energies. So our habit energies are the thoughts and emotional patterns and psychological structures that are ingrained in our brains and our nervous systems and our bodies, and they just reassert themselves almost automatically. Then there's society, which is all about how we look to others and what other people think of us, and how we fit in and how we please others or how we compete with others. And then we go back into that world. And so it's no wonder that between the inner habit energies that have dominated our lives and then the external pressures, we quickly can lose the glow of that spiritual or psychological insight that we gained, either through some spiritual experience or through psychedelics or with an encounter with nature, perhaps. So it's difficult to maintain that. And then above all, there's what my friend, the psychiatrist, Dan Siegel, calls the myth of the solo self. And like we all, fundamentally, every ego believes that it's a unit, that it's a separate unit, sufficient unto itself, and we believe in our separateness, and this culture reinforces that belief, of course. So it's not an easy path.
Yeah. That brings me back to so I did a little bit of a hero's dose of psilocybin. I took 5 grams, and it took me to a really distant place, and I went really far away. But one of the main things that happened in the experience was that, and it was facilitated. This was with a facilitator, and was that I knew that being human wasn't real, but I wanted to be human.
Yes.
And so the first thing that I had to agree to in order to build constructs to get back to being human was I had to agree to the mind.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, great, okay, perfect, fine, let's go. I want to see my family again. I want to see my dogs again. Because in the early part of the experience, I didn't know how I was ever going to be human again, because I knew it wasn't real. And so yes, I had to agree to the mind, which for me felt like the ego. It felt like the stories. This was the lie, because being human wasn't real. The mind was the lie, which is the stories and the ego.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Not personally, but I can tell you about somebody I talked to yesterday. You might know the name. Her name is Anita Moorjani. Do you know that name?
No.
Okay, Anita Moorjani wrote a book called Dying to Be Me. And here was a woman who, in my view of illness as a physician, I've noticed who gets sick and who gets chronic illness and malignancy. It's people who really repress themselves in order to fit in with others. And that's a defensive response to childhood experiences. Anita was one of these people. And she had this terminal lymphoma, stage 4 lymphoma. She was in a coma. And the doctor said, she lives in LA. which is why I'm right. She was in a coma, and the doctors were telling her family to prepare for her death within a few hours.
Oh my goodness.
And then Anita had this out-of-body near-death experience where she saw her whole life, where she saw she had never been herself her whole life. That's why the title of her book, Dying to Be Me. It took near death to make her become herself. But then she was in this realm where she could have chosen to stay there, but she had to make a decision. Do I stay there in this beautiful realm of unity and light, or do I come back into my mind and my body? And it sounds very similar to your experience.
Mm-hmm. I had that choice too.
And she said, I made a choice to come back. Now, within 4 or 5 days, her lymphoma had disappeared. And within a few days, she was out of hospital, and she's never been sick since.